Hello everyone, my name is Doug Bassett. I'm Senior Technical Instructor here at Stormwind Studios. And one of the things that I teach a lot of is Azure, and I'm here to announce a new class that I'm pretty excited for. This is the SC-900, Microsoft Security Compliance and Identity Fundamentals. Now this really is a great class because it illustrates the fact that IT is changing. It used to be that we would always isolate everything and you had to be in the right subnet and you had to be internal and it was internal use only and we had to have user accounts and all that. But things have changed and now we could have users anywhere on the planet accessing all of our stuff, whether it's up in Azure or down in applications that we have on premises, all at the same time. And they could be using Facebook accounts to authenticate, Twitter accounts to authenticate. We can have applications that have their own user account, and that can be a little bit intimidating. So what Microsoft did is they went and they put together the Security, Compliance, and Identity Fundamentals class so that if you're brand new to IT and you want to learn all about the cool stuff that happens to be going on in here, you have the ability to do that. But you don't necessarily have to be married to, now I have to do implementation. That would be the AZ-104 class. Plus, AZ-104 has a lot more stuff. This is all about security, compliance, and identity. Now, we have 4 chapters, and inside each of these chapters, we have a lot of stuff. So the first chapter, it's all going to be about getting that baseline, getting the vocabulary put together, understand the basic concepts of things like sovereignty, governance, individual identities, being able to do things like that, as well as worrying about things like least privilege and making sure that we have a zero trust relationship. So this is going to be kind of the basics to get started off. Then we're going to roll into chapter number 2, and this is where we talk about managed solutions. And this is where we will really dig into a lot of the very powerful features that Microsoft Azure has. We'll talk about basic identity, a user account, password, no problem. But there's also a lot more complexity components associated with it and different identity types. And one of the things that we're really going to lean on to is managed identities, which is very powerful. We'll also look at the different methods of authentication authorization. And if you're like, well, isn't authentication authorization the same thing? Well, that's why you want to go into chapter number 1, because they talk about authentication is proving that you are who you say you are. And authorization is the process of saying, well, this is what you have the permissions to be able to do. And as people are out there poking around using their permissions, we'd be able to track that. If we have administrators making changes, we'd want to be able to track that. And that's where we get into management capabilities and monitoring and make sure that people are doing what they're supposed to do. We also have to worry about maybe it's somebody stole a user account and now they're logging in from somebody else, somewhere else, trying to go in and cause all sorts of problems. Well, we want to try to avoid that as well. And so that's where we get into identity protection and governance capabilities. Then we're going to move into chapter number 3, where we'll talk about some of the things that we have for security in Azure, things like role-based access control, being able to manage these with group policy, or not with group policies, that would be regular Active Directory, but they have what are called compliance policies, where you could go out and have it review your Azure infrastructure and say, yeah, I want to do payment card infrastructure, I want to do credit cards, that stuff like that. Well, this will go in and it'll show you how you can be able to do that. Now, if you want to go even beyond that, we have all sorts of different flavors of defenders. We're going to hit more of that when we get into chapter 4. But they do talk about Sentinel. They talk about Defender. Defender is where they've combined all the various components because we're going to have a layered defense. And then they hook it into Sentinel. And Sentinel will be able to handle some of the more advanced risk factors, like people are logging in from weird IP addresses that's been identified with malware. And maybe we have to fire off multi-factor authentication. I mean, there's all sorts of options. But if you really want to dive deep into it, that's where we get into chapter number 4. This is where we talk about compliance, where we can have policies. We can get a list of devices and settings that are compliant, which ones are not compliant. We can have some recommendations. We could use this if we have to, for example, get certified. Our company has to get certified to be able to process things like credit card payments, HIPAA payments, stuff like that. And it'll show us how we can do that. And it's not just Azure. We also have the stuff with Microsoft 365. And they have specific components with governance and monitoring in 365. One of the new things, you may have seen this on the news, is insider risk, where it makes it so that your mail systems, if you're using 365, which is Exchange email, where if they have conversations and things that look like illegal activity or threats of violence, stuff like that, boom, it'll be able to find that out as well. and we'd be able to do overall governance to make sure that we're keeping the stuff in line with whatever the rules happen to be in that data center, which is usually the rules that happen to be inside that company and inside that country. So there's a lot of things that we have to be aware of, but our real big emphasis is making sure that we have proper authentication and authorization, all the monitoring that we need, and then the ability to do all this stuff programmatically so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Now, if you're really interested in taking the course, we do have Microsoft has exam objectives. This is the under docs.microsoft.com. It is for the exam for the SC-900 exam, which is fundamentals. But it is not going to have any implementation, so you don't have to worry about PowerShell and CLI and going through there and portal on all the configuration. It's really more about learning the concept. So if you're into sales, or if you are interested in modern authentication authorization, if you're an experienced IT professional, or if you're brand new to this, SC-900 may be the way to go. So if you do have any questions on this or any other topic, feel free and email me. My email address is doug.bassett@stormwindlive.com, so you can email me anytime. I teach the vast majority of the Azure. I also teach Microsoft 365, and I teach networking, Network Plus, and all that stuff. So feel free and let me know if you have any questions. But on behalf of everybody here at Stormwind, we appreciate you, and we hope to see you in class real soon. Have a good one.